Dan shi zai ba mu dama ko da ba mu ce
ko ba haka ba, amma yanzu in dai kuna son makarantar nan ta tashi yadda ake so to kada ya zama yadda muka yi taron nan shikenan kuma ba za a sake taro ba sai da kaka.
And our final question is from Everest Ojiako, who is the parent of 2 young children.
We've heard of a lot of teachers this evening talking about how change is always promised but never comes. Why are there so many plans and so little action?
Well, I don't know if we are talking in the general terms of Nigeria or you're asking me because specifically about Kwara. If you're asking me specifically about Kwara, I will invite you to Kwara, to come and see what we are trying to do. But I agree with you that why we have found ourselves where we found ourselves is that for a very, very long time, we couldn't make a connection between process and outcome. What did we set out from the beginning to achieve, and how do we get there? The approaches, the methods, that we are following, will it lead us to the outcome that we have predetermined? There is no such logical connection for a very long time within the policy arena. That's what we are trying to do differently in Kwara. That's one. 2, I don't think the problem of education is largely about, is predominantly about funding. Funding is very important. You need to take care of the cement and block issues, put on infrastructure, buy laboratory equipment, buy all that, pay teachers, But there are a lot of other issues that don't have to do with money that are, in fact, more difficult because they have huge political implications. To change the way people think about education, to drive attitude around education, to show that consistently individuals who have a role to play those roles. For example, I was alluding to something. I said in some of my schools now, the ratio of teachers to pupils we have is 8 pupils to 1 teacher. It's unheard of. Whereas in a school like that, they say they don't have enough teachers. Now the process of moving teachers from one locality to another, it's difficult. You see, so that's why I'm saying that these are some of the non-monetary issues that we need to, and if we're able to do them, you begin to see the issue of curriculum. You see, these are they don't have to do with money.
The question is, where does the money go? Otive Buzo.
Yeah, I think that even from what the panel has said from the past, clearly, the money is going into stealing, it's going into private pockets, is going to inflated contracts, but some of it is also going to development of the schools. But I think the most important thing is what is happening now and what do we need to do better. And like Commissioner Bolaji said, at the various states, things are changing. At the federal level, you see that the oversight function of the legislator is becoming more effective. And the House of Representatives have actually put in a system now that they call input, output, and outcome to ensure that what goes into this money we are talking about, they are able to do what they are expected to do. And what I'm saying, and I'm emphasizing, is that Nigerians must stop this habit of sitting down and doing nothing and saying they are stealing money, because the money belongs to Nigerians. And so citizens, organizations, town unions, professional organizations, the budget is in the internet. And it's known. What budget has been presented recently is known. So we must, if we want development of this country, follow this money and ensure that the money no longer goes into private pockets or inflated contracts, but delivers the services.
Dr. Sufi, he just made allegations here. How would you respond to that?
Well, the allegation is saying that the budget for education go...
Stealing?
No, but
we're talking about education now.
So education. And you see, people can make comments, but what I do know for a fact, I can account for what the federal government does. Let me give you a typical example of a federal government program. Most of our programs, like I said, in education, other than the tertiary, are intervention. We are just aiding local government and states to achieve certain ends, particularly areas of which they have weaknesses. Teacher supply, there are teacher inadequacies almost everywhere. We conceived a program of making, and then the products of it is that every state, if you go, there are a lot of people who completed colleges of education without employment. And we conceived a program whereby we, the federal government, we will pay for these teachers, we'll give them amount of money which is comparable to a salary of their standards. So with the understanding that the states are going to employ this. We have over 45,000 teachers all around the country on this program, so that at least the inadequacies are filled up with this. We release money to the states to ensure that it is judiciously used for the purposes of recruiting these teachers from their own states. Ours is to monitor. We have already allocated these monies to the states, and the states at the end are supposed to employ these people and put them on their own permanent pensionable programs. And we are happy. We have reduced unemployment, we have given schools what they needed, and the monies are judicially utilized. So these are kind of things which a lot of people do not know, and they will take it that education money goes somewhere and all that. Students, like he said, have civic responsibility to follow up budget and see what goes, not only in education, but almost everywhere. But I think it is on the part of government, we'll have to tell also the public, this is what we are doing, so that they can get awakened and see that there is at least a commitment on the part of the government and the administration in particular to turn around the education sector.
There is a formal report from the Universal Basic Education Commission of diversion of funds meant for education to other sources. So it's not just a mere allegation. What I'm saying is that in this country, we must call a spade, and we must deal with the challenges that we are facing if we want to move education forward.
What do you feel about what you've just heard?
The quality of education our children are receiving these days, to a large extent, differs from the quality of education, so to say, that we had. Like the panel, members of the panel mentioned earlier at the beginning, some of us, I schooled in the 70s. I started primary school in the 70s. In the 80s, I was in secondary school and finished. I enjoyed some of these facilities that they mentioned. Even in secondary school, when we started paying fee, it was quite low, very minimal. I don't think I spent up to 50,000 or even 30,000 in 4 years or in 5 years when I was in secondary school. These days, for a kindergarten, someone who's a child who's in kindergarten, you pay as much as 50, 60, 100,000. That's very much.
When policies are being made, the most critical points people look at, mostly when these legislative processes are taken on, is funding. When there's so many policies, what now happens to that fund? That is just the particular, but what happens to that fund for which that policy is being made?
How do we deal with these challenges?
Well, you're looking at me, so I guess you're...
Yeah,
I think what both of them have said here is valid. There's no two ways about it. We have corruption issues in this country. And how do we deal with them? And I mentioned earlier about putting checks and balances in. When we put in the teacher scheme, for instance, there were reports which clearly showed that there were diversion of funds. And those came from the National Assembly. So obviously citizens are reporting, teachers are reporting to their members, and that came back to the UBE. The UBE summoned the SUBEB, the commissioners and the governors, and that was dealt with in that they now had to pay. And this is a good example of getting feedback from the community and that we actually do something about it. The other side of it is that people are so afraid. Everybody is paranoid about the corruption. What I will say is that nobody is stealing any better or worse than the others. It's happening everywhere. What we're trying to do is to put checks and balances to make it work. So when we give a grant from our government at the federal level to a state government, some people will put their hands up and say, oh no, we can't trust the state governments. But I can tell you with the conditional grants that we've given to states, we put in checks and balances. And today what we've had over the last 9 months of that particular program is that state governments have responded. They provided schools, they provided water, they've provided the medical facilities that we need. But it's not without the challenge of making sure you put in the mechanisms, the things that will check that this is happening. We've tried to use civil society and professionals to go out to the field to give us an independent report. Because I think one of the biggest challenges we have is that there is so much cynicism in our country. Things can't work. We have done nothing. It will never work. I mean, this is, and it's justified to an extent. We've had a bad experience. But we say, okay, independent report. Let's use civil society, organize civil society, representative of where they're coming from. Challenge citizens to say, form your groups, come back, follow the money. Tell us, when we read the budget speech and said we're giving you a primary health care center, first, did we get it? Second, is it functional? Can you access it? Does it have water? These are the things we need to hear back. And this is what we've started to institute. And we're trying to now do that across different sectors.
Okay, we must move on now. And to Nguyen, what role does the community play in our education system?
I think the communities should be at the center. They should determine the agenda. They should actually state the priorities because it's their children, the schools are within their communities. They should participate in the process of policy formulation in the sense that they identify what the priorities are within the communities. Because I know that there are schools that have been built because, I mean, it happened because the government decided that, look, you share, give schools to all the local governments. But there are some schools that children don't even attend because probably that wasn't the priority or probably because the communities didn't participate in choosing those schools or the site for the school. So the community must be part of the planning process and also be part of the implementation to the extent that they would monitor and report back, send feedback through the system.
I think that citizens have a responsibility to follow the money and ensure that there is transparency and accountability in this expenditure. But even beyond that, there are other challenges that needs to be addressed, even within the school system itself. I can never forget the first lesson I had in the 70s in social studies, which was titled, Why Africa Remained a Dark Continent for a Long Time. And the reasoning was that Africa is considered a dark continent because it is not known to the Europeans. And up to today, as we speak, they still teach pupils that Mungo Park discovered River Niger. And unless that word discover has a different meaning, you cannot discover a thing to people who were having their bath in River Niger, fishing in River Niger. So there are a whole lot of things to deal with in terms of making education relevant to the needs of the citizens.
Well, we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Nigeria School. Before we come to the end of our debate, I want to ask the panel what they consider to be the one top priority in ensuring Nigeria's children get the education they deserve. Amina Ibrahim.
I think our top priority would be to see how we can collaborate better within the 3 tiers of government and ensure that we get value for money in terms of the results that come out at the end of the day. So that when you put a child through education, what you get is a product that will be empowered and take its rightful place in the development of our country.
Commissioner Abdullahi.
Well, since this is my last chance, I should respond to something.
Briefly?
Yeah, briefly, very briefly. The gentleman parent there said I accused teachers of being responsible for what happened, and I think I'm the one to tell you that when your house is on fire, that's not the time to begin to apportion blame. The first thing you do is to put out the fire. You know, so nobody's blaming teachers. But if you ask me what we need to do to improve quality of education, we have to improve quality of teaching. We have to provide learning materials. We have to improve the administration of schools. And like everybody has said, we have to get the communities around their schools to own their schools and drive accountability.
Dr. Sufi.
Raising quality and standard in education primarily is first a planning matter. Like Amina has just said, I think a national planning with a better coordination between local government, states, and the federal government is very, very necessary. Like when we talk about teacher supply, some teachers have excess teachers. states like Ekiti, and I'm glad to have heard that Kwara is also having excess teachers, while in some parts of the country they are having acute shortage of teachers. So with the national understanding and integration, we will be able to see how we can balance this kind of problems. So I think planning is very basic in education. And then secondly, the coordination between all the three tiers of government and the communities involved and the parents, because these are all stakeholders. Once we are talking to one another, I think we will be able to forge ahead in reducing the problems of educational shortages and deficiencies in Nigeria.
Nguyen Fese.
Yeah, for me it's teacher employment and deployment, effective deployment, plus community participation in terms of setting the agenda. Because most of the problems that we have are actually demand-side problems. There are issues of poverty, for instance, this girls' education issues. I mean, there are cultural issues about early marriages and many things. Labor, for instance, the role of the girl child in the family when they have to look after the sick, all of these things put together. Plus, indeed, the environment. Because I remember that in Kwara State, Honorable Commissioner, before you came, we were on a project there, and we went to a school on a Thursday, I think. There was hardly anybody in the school because they had all gone to the farm. Yeah. It was a market day. So if you don't put the community to tell you how they want to operate their schools, you have a school, you have teachers, you don't have students because they've all gone to the schools or something. I mean, to the farm or to the market or whatever.
Otive Buzo.
Citizens and communities. Citizen participation and relevance of the curriculum.
And from our expert questioners, I would like a brief response to the one single thing they believe must be done if education in Nigeria is to improve in real terms over the next 12 months. Abosede Ogini.
Facilities is very important. That our government to see to infrastructure materials. So if we have enough classrooms, enough desks and beds that the pupils, we have to sit comfortably with these good qualified teachers we are having. That is what I'm saying.
Suleiman Adediran.
Community participation, very, very essential. And you can do that by empowering the community. Let them be able to speak out and have means of listening to them. Freedom of information bill must be passed so that people can tap all people's the views of the community and everybody.
Everest Ojiako.
My own view is of the point that what should be done, government should, as a matter of urgency, put a lot of funding as a priority into education. A lot has been done so far, but more can still be done. And in as much as you're putting this funding, you put checks and balances there. Even if it means spending the same amount you spent in fund to provide for those checks and balances. Because if you spend $1 billion, it can go anywhere. But you spend $1 billion, and you spend $1 billion to hold that $1 billion in one place, it will stay. The checks and balances should be provided, community participation, and excessive funding. Education is needed.
Thank you all for being with us this evening. I would like to leave you with a final reminder of why education in our country matters.
Sunana Sadiq Musa, shekara na 13. Bana na goyi ne, mama na kuma na aikin gyada.
Mu dalilin da yasa na sa su a makarantar saboda lokaci ya zo na zamani, yana da kyau ka sa yaranka a makaranta ya samu ilimi saboda ci gaba.
Ina so in zama chairman na local government. Zan yi makaranta kuma makarantu na yara wanda ba su da iyaye haka ko kuma
da in Allah ba da an suka gama karatun in Allah ba su aiki su je su aiki domin taimakon ƙasar su ma.
On behalf of the panel and all our guests, good night.
You see, the children are the leaders of tomorrow. And if you teach them well and show them the way, they'll follow. Only time can tell the future they hold tomorrow. They need you, they need me to grow. Oh no, I'm talking about proper education, talking about proper infrastructures. We don't want no child abuse. Let's help the youth to make this country come better. I'm talking about teachers when they teach well. Teach the youths and children how to read and how to spell. We don't want no child abuse, so let's help the youths. Let's show them the way to go. They don't need it, proper education. They don't need qualified teachers to make them good leaders. The children need